to celebrate Sydney Prescott's birthday, but also because I just had an idea and wanted to share it. I have made a video pitching how I would make a Scream 8 to follow up on the events of Scream 7. Leo Smith Master here, and if you have not seen Scream 7, I'd recommend clicking off of this video. If you have seen it though, then please continue watching. Either way, a like, subscribe, hype, and comment would all be greatly appreciated, as I'm hoping to get to 650 subscribers before my birthday in mid-May. We start with, as always, the opening scene. This one would open on the Evans house, that is to say, Sydney's house, as she puts her daughters Mia and Charlotte to bed. After singing a lullaby, she steps out into the corridor and hears a rustling sound outside. She sees nothing other than the car in the driveway and heads down to make herself a cup of tea and wait for Mark to get home. While in the kitchen, after looking at a framed photo of Tatum or something, she would get a phone call telling her that Mark has been attacked and is in hospital, and that she needs to get there immediately. Not wanting to leave them alone, she would wake up her daughters and hurry them to the car, and during this the camera would pan down to show that the brake lines have been cut. Sydney would try to call Mark to no avail, followed by the hospital, who'd say that he only just arrived. Traffic lights in front of Sydney would go red and she'd slam her foot on the brakes, but to no avail. The car would fly forwards and slam into incoming traffic, getting flipped upside down in the process. Sydney would be hanging upside down with a large gash in her head as she slowly falls into unconsciousness. The last thing that she would see would be two ghost faces coming to the car and dragging her two unconscious but still alive daughters away. And title card. So yes, this would be our second opening scene without a kill, and our first one which confirms the existence of multiple ghost faces. And that's like, you could say 5 does. I wasn't that happy with the ghost face reveals or meta commentary in Scream 7, so those are both things I'm going to try and build on and do better in this movie. I also wanted to have Tatum as the main character, and I thought one of the best ways to do this would be to put Sydney out of commission, as if she got any wind of something being wrong at Tatum's college, as yes, this is another college or maybe university movie, she would extract her daughter immediately. But with both her parents unable to help and her younger sisters missing, Tatum cannot do much other than live her normal life, with extra alertness and maybe some police protection. The movie would open above a college campus with Happy Together by the Turtles playing, as the camera pans down and through a window to Tatum in a class. Her professor would be a woman in her 50s named Professor Grady, and she'd be talking to a class, but Tatum would not be listening, and instead would be leaning on her elbow and looking outside. Her best friend Maddie would shake her slightly when it's over, and the two would head to the edge of campus, being met on the way by Dylan, Maddie's cousin, Tatum's friend, and the resident film buff of the group. The three would go through a gap in a chain link fence to an abandoned train station, and there would meet up with the rest of their group, which consists of Dylan's best friend Abel, Abel's girlfriend Tina, and Abel's older brother Kane. All of them would be attending the college and doing various courses. Kane would ask Dylan how the world of film studies was going, and Dylan would say that they'd been talking about trends in horror movies. Tatum would recoil slightly at this, and Abel would speak up and say that he misses the old Versus movies, such as Freddy vs. Jason and Alien vs. Predator. Dylan would say that they lack character and story and that they're just action fests, but Abel would say that that's what's so great about them, that they're just fun to watch. Sometime soon after, Tatum and Maddie would be back at their dorm, and there would be a knock on the door. Tatum would open it to find Kirby Reed standing there, and the FBI agent would ask Tatum to come with her. Overall, Kirby would not play that big of a role in the movie, but in her first meeting with Tatum, she would basically explain that her family was attacked, and that both her parents are in hospital, and that both of her sisters are missing. Kirby would promise that she is doing everything she can to find them, and would say that she can take Tatum somewhere safe, but Tatum would say no, and would say that she's safest with her friends at the campus. Kirby would say that historically that hasn't been the case, but that if Tatum insists, then she can stay. but that she'll be placing round-the-clock guards on campus to keep tabs on her. Spoiler, but those guys will be as inefficient as their jobs as always. Tatum, Dylan, Maddie, Tina, and Abel would be in the library with one of the security guards watching them from a distance, when a girl would come up and sit down with them. This would be Clarice, Dylan's ex, and Maddie would tell her that she's not welcome there. Clarice would protest, saying that she makes one mistake and she's not allowed to talk to them, and Dylan would say that taking his car on a joyride and crashing it while cheating on him isn't something he can easily forgive. The next significant thing would be Clarice arriving at her off-campus house at night and finding it seemingly empty. She would go up to her room where she would receive the call, and we would have a classic cat and mouse Ghostface game which would involve her running downstairs to the front door, only for Ghostface to jump out of a cupboard under the stairs and chase her back upstairs. She would lock herself in the large bathroom, where she would find her housemate stabbed and dead in the now stained red tub. Ghostface would be trying to get in, so Clarice would try and squeeze herself through the bathroom window. She would succeed, and fall to the patio below, winding herself too badly to be able to do much. Starting to pull herself away, she would begin to scream and call for help, but Ghostface would come out of a side door and would finish her off. The same night, Tatum would get a call saying that all of her friends are going to die. Ghostface would also say that it hurts most losing those closest to you, and Tatum would ask if he means Maddie, but we would then hear the sounds of young girls crying out for her. Tatum would shout her sisters' names, startling Maddie awake, and Ghostface would hang up. Tatum and Maddie would be taken to the station in the morning, and Kirby would make her second and final appearance to say that 2 bodies were found last night, so that the total is now 3. Tatum would ask who the other one was, and Kirby would say that a police officer was killed when her dad was attacked. The friend group would meet up at the train station later that day, and accusations would start flying. Kane would mention that Dylan had a motive to kill Clarice, and Dylan would say that he doesn't trust anyone apart from Tatum because she's Sydney's daughter, and Tina because she's too cowardly to be Ghostface. Tina would protest, and Abel would stand up for her, before putting his arm around her and saying that he knows she's not a killer, and giving her a little kiss. Maddie would sarcastically say that she'll take the fact that her cousin's suspicious of her as a compliment, and Dylan would say no problem. The next significant thing would be that evening/night, Abel and Tina would be making out on the top floor of a basically empty library, when they'd be jump scared by Dylan. Abel would ask what he's doing, and Dylan would say it's best to travel in threes, so he's basically saving their lives, and other people's lives if one of them is the killer. Tina would say perhaps we're both the killer, and at that moment the lights would go out. The 3 of them would basically huddle together, and soon enough Ghostface would ambush them, and they'd all scatter in different directions, with Abel taking a knife to the arm in the process. Ghostface would chase Dylan, and we would have a great stalking scene with bookshelves and stuff, while Tina rushed to try and sneak into the elevator. It would ding loudly when it arrived, catching Ghostface's attention, but the doors would close just as he can runs at it, and his knife would slam into the doors. Tina would yelp and desperately click the ground floor button. When the door opened, she would run out, seeing the receptionist dead at her desk. Ghostface would burst out of the stairwell and would manage to catch her and kill her, much in the same way as Casey being attacked in Scream 1, though this time it's in a library, and this time the attack is immediately fatal. We would see Dylan on the top floor pull the fire alarm, and sprinklers would start to spray, which Ghostface would react to by hopping over the kind of turnstiles and leaving. There would be another day where Tatum would hear that her parents are both recovering, and during a memorial or something, one of the parents of the dead kids might get angry at her, or whatever. But whatever the case, we would reach the ending, which would see Dylan, Tatum, and Maddie all walking through the campus at night for some stupid reason, such as maybe to check out the crime scene at the library or something. Oh, and it would have been mentioned that Clarice's card had been used to access the library the day before, despite the fact she'd been killed the night before. Surprise, surprise, Ghostface would leap out and attack them. Maddie would run one way and Tatum and Dylan the other. Tatum and Dylan would hide behind a corner, and after hearing nothing for a while, Dylan would say that he's going to check to see if he can find Maddie, and would tell Tatum to stay put and call the police. Tatum would protest, but he'd kiss her and say that he'll be back. I know I haven't talked about any romantic build-up, but there would have been some. Maddie would have rushed back to the building where her and Tatum live, and would find Kane standing over the dead body of one of the officers, who's supposed to be guarding Tatum, outside, with a blood-covered knife in his hand. He would tell Maddie that it's not what she thinks it is, and that he just found the body, but she would turn and run, straight into Ghostface's knife. Ghostface would pull it out and would cut to Tatum, who's still hiding and trying to call the police with shaky fingers, only for someone to call her. Ghostface would tell her to go to the station alone, and would promise her that her sisters are there and alive, but that if she doesn't do exactly what she's told, they will both be killed, whereas if she does do what she's told, one of them might live. Tatum would go to the train station, and on the opposite platform, under two kinds of spotlights, her two younger sisters, Mia and Charlotte, would both be tied to chairs a few feet apart from each other. That, and at her feet, Tatum's I mean, there would be a pistol which she would pick up. Two ghost faces would come from the shadows on the other side of the platform, each holding a stained knife, and they'd each wait behind one of her sisters and would hold their knives to the girls' throats. With their free hands, the ghost faces would unmask themselves to reveal Kane and Abel, both smiling maniacally. Tatum would ask why, and Abel would say that it's like he said a few days ago. Horror movies have lost their spark in the past few years, and the whole killer versus killer trope has just disappeared. Kane would explain that with the help of their sponsor, they decided to have a little friendly competition to see who could kill more people. He'd say that he'd managed to get 3, and Abel would cut in and say that he'd managed to get 4 as long as Maddie didn't make it. He'd say that he would have finished that off, but it had to come here first, and that it's always fun making them suffer more anyways, though his last kill had been a quick one. Kane would say that because they don't know about Maddie, it's basically 3 each, and that it's up to Tatum to decide which of them gets the victory. Overall, Abel would come off as more manic, while Kane would seem more controlled but no less murderous. Tatum would have picked up the gun and would be moving it between the two killers, while her sisters looked at her with pleading and probably teary eyes. Tatum would say that they're demented, the brothers I mean, not her sisters, before asking who their sponsor is and what they're talking about. At this, the third and final Ghostface would step forward out of the shadows between the two girls. She wouldn't be in costume, but she would be holding a gun identical to the one that Tatum has. Professor Grady? Tatum would ask. It's Leslie, actually. Leslie Mocker, she'd reply. Yes, I went there. I know, well, it is a bit of a rehash of Scream 2, having a female relative of one of the two ghost faces from the first movie help a killer out at college, while said female relative also appears earlier in the movie under a pseudonym. But I think that this movie as a whole would have felt different enough, and not everything is the same. Stu Mocker's sister, Abel would say. She finally showed herself. Leslie Mocker would say that she knew there was only one way to truly punish Sydney, and that it was to go after her children. She would ask Tatum if she knew what it was like to lose a sibling, someone you love who looks up to you but wouldn't let Tatum answer. Not only had she lost a brother, but Leslie's own son had also been killed because of Sydney and her legacy. Leslie would explain that the gun Tatum's holding has only one bullet loaded, and that she must use it to kill one of her sisters, before obviously being killed herself. If she refuses or tries to shoot one of them, Kane and Abel have orders to kill both Mia and Charlotte. Abel would laugh and say that a Prescott counts double, and Kane would tell him to shut up. A small noise would come from the side of their platform, but only Tatum would notice, and would quickly ask how she'd know that one of her sisters would get to live. Leslie would say that she doesn't, but that she's going to die anyway, and that she would be the one to kill her. Leslie would go on to monologue for a bit about not caring for the stab movies or for Cain and Abel's motive, and while this would seem to annoy Abel, Cain would just act sinisterly calm as ever, because he's just happy he's getting to kill people. Leslie would tell Tatum that she has to choose, and would start to count down from 10. When she got to 1, Tatum would shout wait, and at that second Dylan would jump out and smack Abel across the head with an iron bar. Cain would be surprised and his angle around Charlotte would loosen slightly. Tatum would fire a bullet that would hit him square in the forehead and he'd drop down backwards, dead. Leslie would fire a few hasty shots at Tatum, who was jumped down onto the tracks, and then at Abel and Dylan, who are brawling on the floor. She would miss Dylan but would hit Abel in the shoulder, allowing Dylan to throw him off and onto the tracks, just as Tatum kind of climbs up onto the other platform. And at this, Leslie would run off, because unlike Tatum, she had no prior training with a gun. Dylan would tell Tatum to go after her, and would hand her his iron bar, while he goes to untie Mia and Charlotte, with the help of a pocket knife. There'd be a scrapyard round the back of the train station, and this is where the final confrontation between Tatum and Leslie would happen. Leslie would have reloaded her gun, but Tatum would manage to surprise her. During the fight, Leslie would manage to shoot her in the leg, and thanks to this would be able to overpower her, but when she stood over Tatum, she would pause, as always, to say that at least Sydney will lose one child tonight. And just as she said this and cocked her pistol, Madge would smack her in the head with the dropped iron bar. Back at the station, Dylan would have untied Mia, who'd be struggling to help him untie Charlotte. Charlotte's eyes would widen as she sees Abel crawling back up onto the platform, knife in hand. Dylan wouldn't notice, but Mia would scream and Dylan would lunge for Cain's dropped knife, before turning around and flinging it. The knife would sink through Abel's eye and he'd fall down dead, just like his older brother. Back at the scrapyard, Maddie would help Tatum to her feet and would hand her the gun, which had also been dropped. "You've always got to shoot them in the head, right?" she would ask, holding a hand over her wounded stomach, and Tatum would say yes. Leslie would protest and, still on the floor, would kind of like crawl backwards and say that she's sorry for what she did. Tatum would say that she isn't and would shoot her in the head. Enjoy your reunion with your brother. The 3 Ghostfaces have all been killed in the only way you can permanently kill a Ghostface, and not only this, but Sydney's family would have all physically survived, though with added emotional damage of course, but this time some of Tatum's friends also managed to survive. As I said, this was quite similar to Scream 2 and even Scream 6, just due to the fact that that movie is similar to Scream 2. But please comment what you'd like to see from Scream 8 in the comments, as well as what your favourite Scream movie is. Mine's the original, but Scream 4 is a close second. I've got plenty more Scream content and videos planned, such as a Who Killed Who for the franchise as a whole, and an updated Ghostface ranking video, but I've got no idea when or if I'll actually make them. Remember, God loves you, have a good day, and ta-ta.